So let me get this straight, Admiral Rodriguez said. You thought bombing our colony would… What exactly? Make us surrender? The Crothic ambassador's mandibles twitched in what their intelligence suggested was a sign of confusion. The insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected the harsh lighting of the negotiation chamber aboard humanity's flagship, Defiant. Your species had shown no significant military capabilities, the ambassador clicked. Our analysis indicated a swift capitulation was the most probable outcome. Rodriguez couldn't help it. She laughed, the kind of deep belly laugh that made her aide wince and the alien delegation's guards shift uncomfortably. Oh, honey, she wheezed, wiping tears from her eyes. You really should have done better research. The ambassador's antennae flattened against their carapace. We do not understand your amusement. We destroyed your outpost on Kepler 186F. 3,000 of your people died. Yes. Rodriguez's voice went cold, though her smile remained. You did, and we're going to have a long chat about that. But first, I want you to look at something. She gestured to her aide, who activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A recording began to play. Footage from one of their defense platforms showing the Crothic bombardment of the colony. The alien ships, sleek and predatory, rained plasma fire from orbit. Pretty impressive tech you've got there, Rodriguez commented casually. Real flashy. Now watch this. The recording continued. As the Crothic ships moved to their next targeting vector, something small detached from the defense platform. Something that the alien's sensors had dismissed as debris. The ambassador's compound eyes widened as they watched the debris suddenly accelerate, its outer hull peeling away to reveal a swarm of even smaller objects. Hundreds of them, each no bigger than a human fist. We call them fireflies, Rodriguez said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Cute little things, aren't they? Each one carries a quantum-tunneling warhead about the size of a grain of rice. On the hologram, the swarm enveloped the lead Crothic vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. Just empty space where a kilometer-long warship had been moments before. The ambassador's mandibles clacked rapidly. Impossible. Our shields can't stop something that doesn't technically pass through them. Rodriguez finished. Quantum tunneling's a bitch like that. Your shields might as well be tissue paper. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. Here's the thing about humans. We've spent most of our history fighting ourselves. Do you have any idea how much innovation that drives? How many different ways we've figured out to kill each other? The hologram showed another Crothic ship vanishing, then another. The remaining vessels tried to retreat, but the fireflies were relentless. The entire attack fleet was gone in under 3 minutes. But that's not even the best part, Rodriguez continued, her grin widening. See, we're also really good at learning from our mistakes. The moment your ships appeared in our space, every scrap of data we could gather was being analyzed. By the time you actually attacked, we'd already figured out most of your technological weaknesses. She gestured to her aide again, who brought up a new display. Technical schematics of Crothic ship systems, defensive capabilities, and weapon configurations. Your plasma cannons? Inspired design, really. But they have a reset cycle of 3.7 seconds between shots. Your shield generators can't maintain full coverage during sharp maneuvers. And your ship's neural networks? Adorably vulnerable to certain frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. The ambassador's guards were now openly backing away from the table. Rodriguez couldn't blame them. She imagined this conversation was violating everything they thought they knew about humanity's capabilities. Which brings us to why we're having this chat, she said, her voice hardening. 3,000 of my people are dead because you made some very poor assumptions. Now we could respond in kind. Hell, we could probably wipe out your entire species before you figured out how we were doing it. She held up a hand as the ambassador began to speak. But we're not going to do that. Because unlike you, we learned a long time ago that genocide is generally bad for business. Instead, we're going to negotiate terms for reparations, technology exchange, and future diplomatic relations. Rodriguez's smile returned, though it didn't reach her eyes. And you're going to accept these terms because now you know what the alternative looks like. How does that sound? The ambassador was silent for a long moment, their antennae twitching erratically. Finally they spoke. Your species. You are not what we expected. Yeah, we get that a lot, Rodriguez chuckled. Now, shall we discuss those terms? I've got a dinner reservation in New Shanghai I'd rather not miss. As the negotiations proceeded, Rodriguez couldn't help but reflect on the irony of it all. The Crothic had attacked humanity thinking they were dealing with primitive newcomers to the galactic stage. Instead, they'd managed to pick a fight with what amounted to a species of paranoid super-engineers, who treated every sci-fi scenario as a design challenge. The real kicker? The Fireflies were one of their older weapon systems. Wait until the Crothic found out about the quantum entanglement mines, or the time dilation torpedoes, or that thing Dr. Patel cooked up in her garage that technically violated several laws of physics. But that was a surprise for another day. Right now, Rodriguez had paperwork to file, reparations to arrange, and a date with some authentic dim sum that she refused to postpone again. Just another Tuesday in humanity's diplomatic corps. 3 months later, Admiral Rodriguez sat in her office aboard the Defiant, reviewing the latest reports from the Crothic integration teams. The insectoid species had proven to be surprisingly adaptable once they got over their initial shock. Their engineers were already collaborating with human teams on several joint projects, and their unique perspective on biotechnology had opened up some fascinating new research directions. A message notification popped up on her display. Admiral, the Volrathi delegation has arrived. They're requesting an immediate audience regarding our unprovoked aggression against their allies, the Crothic. Rodriguez smiled as she pulled up the specs for humanity's latest defense systems. Some people just had to learn the hard way. Tell them I'll be right there, she replied. And make sure the holoprojector is warmed up. I have a feeling we'll be doing another demonstration. As she headed to the conference room, she made a mental note to update her dinner reservations. These conversations tended to run long once the aliens realized just how badly they'd miscalculated. But hey, at least it was never boring. Diplomatic shenanigans, the Volrathi, as it turned out, made the Crothic look positively subtle. Your interference has disrupted the natural order, the Volrathi High Commander boomed, his crystalline form pulsing with angry red light. The Crothic were designated as our client species. Their development was proceeding according to plan until you intervened. Rodriguez studied the towering crystalline being with mild interest. The Volrathi were an ancient species, or so they claimed, and they certainly acted the part. All pompous declarations and grandiose threats. They reminded her of every colonial empire from Earth's history, right down to the patronizing attitude toward lesser species. Funny thing about plans, she said, leaning back in her chair. They tend to go sideways when you don't account for all the variables. Like, oh, I don't know, the fact that your client species decided to bomb one of our colonies? The High Commander's crystalline structure chimed discordantly. The Crothic's action was sanctioned. We determined that humanity needed to be properly positioned within the galactic hierarchy. Positioned, Rodriguez repeated flatly. You mean subjugated? Your species is young, the High Commander said condescendingly. You require guidance, structure. The Volrathi hierarchy has maintained order in this sector for 10,000 years. Rodriguez signaled her aide, who activated the holoprojector. Speaking of structure, let me show you something interesting. The display showed a Volrathi battleship, one of their famous world breakers. The massive vessel was a marvel of engineering, its crystalline construction allowing it to channel and amplify energy in ways that human scientists were still trying to fully understand. Beautiful ship, Rodriguez commented. Really impressive. The crystalline matrix configuration is particularly clever. Lets you transfer power anywhere in the vessel almost instantly, right? The High Commander's glow brightened slightly. You understand more than expected. Yes, our crystalline technology is far beyond. The thing about crystals, though, Rodriguez interrupted, is that they have these pesky little things called resonant frequencies. She nodded to her aide, who adjusted the display. Now it showed a different Volrathi ship, this one vibrating subtly, its crystalline structure developing microscopic fractures that spread like lightning through its hull. Taken during a recent field test, Rodriguez explained. Turns out if you hit just the right frequency, and I mean exactly the right frequency, the whole system starts to shake itself apart. Kind of like an opera singer shattering a wine glass, but on a much bigger scale. The High Commander's red glow had taken on a distinctly worried purple tinge. You cannot— Oh, but we can, Rodriguez grinned. We've got the math all worked out. One of our physicists, brilliant woman, absolutely obsessed with crystal structures, figured it out in about 2 days. Been dying to test it on a larger scale. She stood up, walking around the table to stand before the towering crystalline being. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to recognize humanity as an independent power. You're going to back off from the Crothic, who, by the way, have formally requested our protection. And you're going to seriously reconsider this whole natural order business. Or, the High Commander's voice had lost some of its boom, or we start testing frequencies On every Volrathi ship, station, and settlement we can find. Rodriguez's smile was razor sharp. I wonder what your homeworld's resonant frequency is. Bet we could find out. The conference room was silent except for the faint humming of the High Commander's crystalline form. Finally, they spoke. You would not dare. The consequences. Rodriguez held up a small device, nothing more than a simple sonic emitter. The High Commander immediately backed away. Try me, she said softly. Because here's what you don't seem to understand about humans. We don't like bullies, we don't like empires, and we really don't like being told our place. She set the device down. But we're also pretty good at making friends. Ask the Krothic. Once they stopped trying to kill us, they found out we're actually pretty nice to have around. We share our technology, we respect our allies' independence, and we make really good coffee. You would upend millennia of established order. The High Commander protested, but their voice was uncertain. Yep, Rodriguez agreed cheerfully. We're annoying like that. Now, should we discuss those new treaty terms? I hear there's a great Krothic restaurant that just opened in the diplomatic quarter. Their fusion cuisine is amazing. They've combined their traditional fermented protein pools with human spices. Sounds weird. Tastes incredible. As the High Commander's glow shifted to a contemplative blue, Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the best way to win a war was to make the enemy realize they'd rather be your customer. Plus, she really wasn't kidding about the Krothic fusion cuisine. Those insectoids had turned out to have a surprisingly sophisticated palate once they were introduced to sriracha sauce. Well, that escalated quickly, Admiral. Lieutenant Park's voice crackled through Rodriguez's comm unit at 0300 ship time. We've got a situation. Rodriguez was already pulling on her uniform before the lieutenant finished speaking. Experience had taught her that when Park used that particular tone, things were about to get interesting. Define situation. The Volrathi, well ma'am, they appear to be having a civil war. 20 minutes later, Rodriguez stood in the Defiance command center, watching multiple holographic displays showing the unfolding chaos across Volrathi space. The crystalline species had apparently taken humanity's forced reorganization of their power structure a bit too much to heart. Let me get this straight, she said, rubbing her temples. The younger Volrathi colonies are declaring independence? Yes, ma'am, Park confirmed. Apparently, our little demonstration with the resonance frequencies gave them ideas. They've been secretly developing their own versions of the technology. The colonial forces are using modified mining equipment to, well, one of the displays showed a Volrathi dreadnought literally shaking itself to pieces. Fantastic, Rodriguez muttered. Any other good news? The Krothic have offered to mediate, Park said, managing to keep a straight face. They said something about having experience with paradigm shifts in power dynamics. Rodriguez couldn't help but laugh. Oh, the irony. What about the hierarchy loyalists? They're requesting our assistance, actually. Park brought up a formal diplomatic communiqué. They're offering significant technological concessions in exchange for our help in, quote, maintaining stability and preventing the complete collapse of civilized society. Translation, they want us to save their crystalline behinds from their own people. Rodriguez shook her head. And here I was hoping to try that new Thai place in New Bangkok tonight. Should I decline their request? Rodriguez studied the tactical displays thoughtfully. The situation was rapidly deteriorating across multiple sectors. If the Volrathi hierarchy completely collapsed, the power vacuum could destabilize the entire region. On the other hand, this might be an opportunity to reshape one of the galaxy's oldest power structures into something more equitable. No, she decided. Tell them we'll help, but on our terms. Get me a secure channel to both the hierarchy leadership and the colonial representatives. And someone wake up the Krothic ambassador. If they want to play mediator, let's put them to work. 6 hours later, Rodriguez sat at the head of a very unusual conference table. On one side sat the Volrathi High Commander, their crystalline form now a subdued shade of anxiety purple. On the other side, a delegation of colonial leaders pulsed with various shades of defiance and determination. In the middle, a Krothic diplomatic team clicked and gestured, their species' recent experience with dramatic political change making them surprisingly effective moderators. Here's the deal, Rodriguez began, setting her coffee cup down. Humanity will help stabilize the situation and prevent this conflict from spreading. In exchange, the hierarchy will transition to a federal system with significant autonomy for all colonies. Unacceptable, the High Commander chimed. The natural order is changing, Rodriguez finished. That's what orders do. They either adapt or they shatter. Right now, you're doing a lot of shattering. One of the colonial leaders pulsed with agreement green. The old system is unsustainable. We have grown beyond— Yes, revolution and destiny, I get it, Rodriguez interrupted. But complete fragmentation isn't the answer either. You need each other more than you realize. She gestured to her aide, who activated a holographic display showing trade routes, resource distribution, and economic interdependencies across Vkr'lak space. Your colonies have the innovation and drive for change, she said to the revolutionaries. The core worlds have the infrastructure and institutional knowledge to make those changes work. Together, you could build something new, something better. The Crothic ambassador chittered in agreement. Our own integration with human systems has proven mutually beneficial beyond initial projections. Adaptation and cooperation yield optimal outcomes. Rodriguez hid a smile. 6 months ago, the Crothic had been trying to bomb humanity into submission. Now they were lecturing other species about the benefits of cooperation. The galaxy was a weird place sometimes. So here's what's going to happen, she continued. We're going to establish a transitional council, with representatives from all parties. Humanity and the Crothic will provide oversight and security guarantees. All resonance weapons are to be secured and registered. Yes, including the ones you think we don't know about. She looked pointedly at several colonial leaders, whose glow dimmed slightly. Meanwhile, we'll help you set up a new governmental framework, one that balances central authority with local autonomy. The Crothic have kindly offered their diplomatic facilities on Nexus Station for the Constitutional Convention. And if we refuse? The High Commander asked, though their tone suggested they already knew the answer. Rodriguez smiled. Then we step back and let you finish tearing yourselves apart. But first, we'll make sure everyone in your space knows exactly how to find their local crystal's resonant frequency. I imagine that would make for some interesting times. The conference room was silent for a long moment, filled only with the subtle humming of Vkr'lak forms and the quiet clicking of Crothic mandibles. Finally, the High Commander's glow shifted to acceptance blue. Your terms are not unreasonable. Glad to hear it. Rodriguez stood up. Now, I suggest we take a break. The Crothic have prepared a selection of refreshments, including some fascinating crystal-based beverages they developed specifically for Vkr'lak physiology. Apparently, they've been studying your species' molecular structure quite thoroughly since our last meeting. As the various delegations filed out, Lieutenant Park approached with a data pad. Ma'am, we're getting reports of unusual activity in the Carina sector. Something about reality warping entities and temporal anomalies. Rodriguez sighed. Of course we are. Because one interstellar crisis at a time would be too simple. She reached for her coffee cup, found it empty, and frowned. Get me a full briefing ready for 0800 tomorrow, and find out if that tie place delivers to orbital stations. Yes, ma'am. Should I also inform Dr. Patel that her garage-based physics violation device might be needed again? Better safe than sorry, Rodriguez nodded. And tell her this time, no creating parallel universes without filing the proper paperwork first. The bureaucrats are still processing the citations from last month. Just another week in humanity's diplomatic corps. At least the food was getting more interesting. Time, reality, and other minor inconveniences. Remember when first contact was our biggest worry? Rodriguez mused, staring at the swirling temporal anomaly that filled the main view screen of the Defiant. Those were simpler times. The anomaly pulsed with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space-time, casting impossible shadows across the bridge. According to the sensors, it was simultaneously 5 light-years wide and smaller than a quark. Dr. Patel was having the time of her life trying to measure it. Ma'am, Lieutenant Park reported. We're receiving a transmission from ourselves, from 3 weeks ago, and also from next Tuesday. Rodriguez took a long sip of her coffee. Put them both on screen, and someone please tell Dr. Patel to stop poking the fabric of reality with that quantum probe. The last thing we need is— The ship shuddered as another reality wave washed over them. When it passed, everyone on the bridge had switched seats. Rodriguez found herself at the tactical station, while Park was somehow sitting on the ceiling. That happening, she finished with a sigh. Everyone back to your proper stations and dimensions, please. As the crew sorted themselves out, the view screen split into 3 sections. On the left was the Defiant from 3 weeks ago, in the middle their current position. And on the right, well, that version of the ship seemed to be partly phased into what looked suspiciously like a dimension of pure jazz music. This is Admiral Rodriguez from 3 weeks ago. came her own voice from the left screen. We're detecting some strange readings from our position. Please advise. This is Admiral Rodriguez from next Tuesday, said the right screen, where her future self was wearing what appeared to be a hat made of crystallized time. Whatever you do, don't let Dr. Patel use the transmission cut off in a burst of chronometric interference. Right, Current Rodriguez said, rubbing her temples. Park, get me a secure channel to the Crothic Science Council. Then find Dr. Patel and confiscate anything that looks like it might violate causality. Too late for that, ma'am, Park replied. She's already started analyzing the temporal anomaly's quantum signature. According to these readings... Oh dear. Oh dear is not something I want to hear right now, Lieutenant. The anomaly, ma'am, it's not natural. These energy patterns, they're Volrathi in origin, but not our Volrathi. According to this, they're from a parallel universe where the hierarchy never developed crystalline technology. They evolved into beings of pure temporal energy instead. Rodriguez stared at her empty coffee cup. Get me the Volrathi High Commander, and the colonial leaders, and, you know what? Get me everyone. This feels like an everyone problem. 2 hours later, the Defiance main conference room was crowded with representatives from every major power in the sector. The Volrathi delegates pulsed with anxious colors. The Crothic scientists clicked excitedly over readings, and Dr. Patel was trying to explain quantum temporal mechanics using a variety of food items from the ship's mess hall. So you see, she said, arranging some pasta into a complex pattern. Their universe is bleeding into ours because they basically tried to time terraform their entire galaxy. But they didn't account for multidimensional resonance patterns, which means... Doctor, Rodriguez interrupted gently. Maybe skip to the part where you tell us how to fix it. Oh, that's the easy part, Patel grinned, holding up what looked like a modified coffee maker with temporal stabilizers attached. We just need to synchronize the resonant frequencies of both universes' Volrathi populations. The crystalline forms in our universe can act as natural dimensional anchors, while the temporal forms in their universe provide the energy for the realignment. The High Commander's glow flickered uncertainly. And this will prevent our reality from collapsing? Probably, Patel said cheerfully. There's only about a 12% chance of accidentally merging all possible timelines into a single point of infinite density. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Doctor, fine. I'll run more simulations, but we should hurry. According to my calculations, we've got about 6 hours before causality becomes more of a polite suggestion than a fundamental law of physics. A Crothic scientist raised a limb. We have developed a prototype quantum resonance amplifier that could assist. It was originally designed to enhance the flavor of human coffee, but the principles should be similar. Rodriguez decided not to ask why the Crothic were experimenting with coffee-based quantum technology. Some questions were better left unanswered. All right, she said, standing up. Here's the plan. Dr. Patel, you and the Crothic science team work on the resonance synchronizer. Volrathi delegates, I need you to coordinate with your populations, both crystalline and temporal. Everyone else, prepare for possible evacuation to the emergency timeline we keep in Dr. Patel's backup hard drive. What will you be doing, Admiral? Park asked. Rodriguez smiled grimly. I'm going to draft the incident report for command. Someone has to explain why we need a budget increase for interdimensional crisis management. As the various teams dispersed to their tasks, Rodriguez couldn't help but wonder if perhaps humanity had been a bit too successful at shaking up the galactic status quo. First reformed empires, now parallel universes. At this rate, they'd run out of fundamental forces to mess with. Then again, Dr. Patel had been making some interesting noises about the nature of gravity lately. Park, she called out, make sure the tie place delivers to parallel dimensions. Something tells me we're going to be working through dinner. The lieutenant nodded, already typing on his pad. Yes, ma'am. Should I order extra for our temporal duplicates? Better make it a double order. If we're going to save reality as we know it, we might as well do it on a full stomach. Reality checks and balances. The problem with trying to save reality, Rodriguez reflected, was that it had a nasty habit of being uncooperative. Case in point, Dr. Patel's temporal synchronization device was working perfectly. Too perfectly. So, Rodriguez said, watching as multiple versions of herself appeared and disappeared around the bridge. When you said we'd synchronize the universes. Well, technically we're synchronizing all the universes, Patel explained excitedly. Her lab coat was now somehow plaid and fluorescent simultaneously. See, the resonance cascade is creating a temporary superposition of every possible timeline where the Vkr'lak exist. A version of Rodriguez wearing an eye patch and carrying an energy cutlass walked past, pursuing what appeared to be a pirate version of Lieutenant Park. And this is helping how exactly? Oh, it's brilliant, really. Another Dr. Patel, this one sporting a magnificent handlebar mustache, chimed in. By creating a quantum simultaneity matrix, we can allow the various Vkr'lak forms to achieve dimensional harmony, continued a third Patel, who seemed to be partly incorporeal. And then collapse the wave function back to a stable timeline, finished the original Patel. Probably. Rodriguez watched as a version of herself in full Viking regalia arm-wrestled a Vkr'lak wearing a cowboy hat. Define stable. Before any of the Patels could answer, the ship's AI interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from everyone, simultaneously, including several versions of ourselves that apparently evolved into a hive mind of sentient breakfast pastries. Put them on screen, Rodriguez sighed. Not the pastries, though. I'm not ready for that existential crisis yet. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a dizzying array of alternate reality versions of their various alien allies. Crystalline Vkr'lak, temporal Vkr'lak, quantum Vkr'lak, and several varieties that defied description. Vkr'lak of all possible evolutionary paths, even a few versions of humanity that had taken some very different turns at various historical crossroads. This is getting out of hand. All versions of the Vkr'lak High Commander spoke in unsettling harmony. Their forms ranged from pure crystal to living time to what looked suspiciously like a giant singing tulip. No kidding, Rodriguez muttered. Dr. Patel, any of you, please tell me you have this under control. The various Patels exchanged glances across dimensional boundaries. Well, we've identified the problem. The temporal Vkr'lak's attempt to time terraform their galaxy created a cascade effect. But instead of just affecting their timeline, it's causing all possible timelines to converge. And the good news? We've got tacos in the mess hall, announced a Patel wearing a sombrero made of quantum probability fields. Doctor. Right. The actual good news is that we can use this convergence to our advantage. If we can get all versions of the Vkr'lak to focus their various energy forms, crystalline, temporal, quantum, and whatever that tulip thing is, we can create a stabilization matrix powerful enough to separate the timelines again. Rodriguez nodded slowly. And the catch? Well, all the Patels said simultaneously, which was never a good sign. Someone needs to go to the center of the temporal anomaly and activate the resonance synchronizer manually. The timing has to be perfect across all dimensions. Let me guess, Rodriguez said. Whoever does it might end up temporally displaced. More like quantum scattered across multiple realities, Patel admitted. But only temporarily. Probably, maybe. The math gets a bit fuzzy there. Rodriguez looked around her bridge. Pirates, cowboys, Vikings, and various other alternate versions of her crew were starting to blur together as reality became increasingly unstable. Through the view screen, she could see entire star systems starting to overlap and merge. Right, she decided. Patch me through to all versions of everyone. The comm system crackled as it connected across dimensional boundaries. Rodriguez took a deep breath and channeled her best humanity knows what it's doing voice. This is Admiral Rodriguez. All versions of me. To all versions of everyone listening, we have a plan to fix this mess. It's not a great plan, but it's better than letting reality collapse. I need every Vkr'lak form to coordinate with their local Vkr'lak science teams. Dr. Patel, again, all versions, will transmit the resonance frequencies you need to focus on. She paused as a version of herself riding a velociraptor galloped past. I'll take the synchronizer to the anomaly's center. Once I give the signal, every version of the Vkr'lak needs to hit those frequencies exactly on my mark. No hesitation, no second guessing. We get one shot at this. Admiral. Park's voice came from somewhere to her left. She turned to see at least 12 versions of him, ranging from standard issue to one that seemed to be made entirely of living mathematics. The chances of maintaining dimensional coherence during the synchronization are about the same as our chances were against the Vkr'lak fleet? Or solving the Vkr'lak civil war? Or surviving first contact in general? Rodriguez grinned. I like those odds. She turned to Dr. Patel. The original one, she was pretty sure. Doctor, get that synchronizer ready. And someone find me a pressure suit that works in 11 dimensions. We've got a reality to save. As her crew, all versions of them, scrambled to prepare, Rodriguez made one final ship-wide announcement. And whoever ordered those tacos, make sure they're still hot when I get back. Assuming I end up in this particular version of reality, of course. To be concluded.